Hello and Happy New Year from the FAIRtax Guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy New Year.
We're normally on live at this time, but we're taking an extended holiday break. Today's video program is pre-recorded. The comments will be live. You can talk to us there. Yep. But we will be back live on FAIRtax Power Radio for Big Daddy Studios in Gainesville, Florida next week, and we hope to see you then.
That's right. So enjoy. Happy New Year from the FAIRtax Guys, and let's look forward to a very profitable New Year for the FAIRtax, and enjoy our show. Thank you.
Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
Coming to you from Big Daddy Studios in Gainesville, Florida. This is our recorded version, even though as it streams live, we will be doing our live comments. The video is pre-recorded, but if you've got a live comment you'd like to make as this video streams, we are on the air, and Randy is probably going to be with us as well, answering your questions and comments about the FAIRtax. So again, thank you for joining us.
And at any time, you can send us an email at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. And we get some great input from our listeners and viewers. Okay, we get suggestions for shows. It's wonderful. So we really appreciate it.
Since this one's pre-recorded, you can't call on our 800 number and talk to us like droves of people do every week. But
yes.
You can still send us a note at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, make a comment on our Facebook page, and we would certainly like to get to you. In fact, we've gotten a lot of good comments from both sources that have made their way onto FAIRtax Power Radio. So we can always use your...
Whether you have a positive comment, a negative comment, whatever, you know, it always adds to the program, because I believe we can deflect and explain some of the negative comments.
I have one question. If you're going to send a negative comment, make sure that it's based on what the FAIRtax actually is and not based on what somebody's told you it was or some kind of twisted image of it in your mind, because we found a lot of people don't even bother. It's regressive. It's going to hurt the poor.
Exactly. That knee-jerk reaction.
That tells me you do not understand the prebate. You don't know what the FAIRtax is all about. So, again, we encourage folks who want to actually ask honest questions, who want to point out things that may be problems with it, but we do want to have intellectually honest discussion about what the actual FAIRtax is and not what somebody's talking point says it's going to be, you know.
You know what, Bob?
Yes.
We haven't talked about these things in a while.
We haven't, and I'll tell you what, this, we were thinking, last week we were at our Thanksgiving show, we were thanking everybody who was helping out here on FAIRtax Power Radio and it helped in the cause of promoting the FAIRtax. We'd like to thank the manufacturers of the Rubik's Cubes who gives us our little visual props here. For those of you who have never seen this before, this is something that, of course, we talking about Marilyn Rickert last week at going up to the CPAC conference. We took these to CPAC with us. These are our visual representations. We really couldn't do this when we were an audio-only podcast, just on the radio. But now that we're on streaming video here and folks can see as well as hear what we're doing, this is a 9x9 Rubik's Cube, which I have scrambled royally, and it represents the income tax.
Yeah,
now,
scrambled.
Again, what we figured out one time, if you took the actual pages in the tax code versus the pages in the FAIRtax, and this little 2x2 is the FAIRtax. Instead of a 9x9, it would have to be like 28x28 to actually be a full-scale representation of the difference between the FAIRtax and the income tax. But this is what we've got. The income tax is just a jumbled mess, full of loopholes and deductions.
This is bad enough.
And when Congress comes around and says they're going to give us tax reform, this is what they do.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's it.
That's what they call reform.
They may do that as well. Turn on the other side.
Now, it takes Bob about 40 minutes to fix this thing, you know, back to everything. Imagine a 28 by 28 by 28.
The 28 by 28 would probably take close to a week. Now, I could do it because they all solve on the same principle, but I could do that. It would just take a while.
And this one.
And this is the flat tax.
Yep.
Now, the flat tax starts out kind of like that.
Yeah. But then
when the lobbyist gets a hold of it, you get that, and then you get that, and then you get that.
Yeah.
And before long, the flat tax ends up looking just like this one.
Lobbyists love the idea of going to a flat tax because they get to start all over again. and they get to buy their Gucci loafers, in perpetuity. That's why they call it Gucci Gulch there in K Street. The flat tax will not stay flat any more than, say, the 2 years of the Congress that passed it. As long as you have a flat tax, you still have an IRS, and you still have Congress going after it with this change, that change. How many changes to, on Congress.gov? It was like 1,648? 1,648 proposals to change the tax code in the 115th Congress. Not all of them will become law, but they just continually make proposals, to change the tax code. And it's going to benefit this group, or it's going to benefit that group. Well, when it benefits one group, the rest of us has to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, that's what this representation is.
This is tax returns. This is record keeping. This is hours upon hours. This is compliance costs for small businesses. It's just a royal mess, as opposed to you pay the tax when you buy something at the cash register. End of story, end of discussion. Simple, no problem. That's what we do here in Florida. There is no state income tax here in Florida. So we support it when we buy stuff at the cash register, and that's it. And the state has no idea how much any individual gives. The state has no idea how any individual makes their money, where they make their money, how much money they make. None of that stuff. If we asked Thomas Jefferson if he was here, he would say that's none of the government's doggone business.
Yeah.
But they have the government has made it their business with the income tax. So we want to replace the income tax with the fair tax, a simple, progressive in its application, retail consumption tax, no more IRS, no more withholding, no more payroll taxes. I mean, there is no downside to the fair tax.
I don't want to make this a Florida thing, but I was talking to somebody last week who was in favor of the fair tax and so forth. And he said, now, again, Bob already mentioned, in Florida and several other states, they don't have an income tax. We don't have an income tax. We have a sales tax. That's our primary fund generator, okay? So this guy was has been talking to people about the fair tax. Every once in a while, he'll get somebody in Florida who says, oh, consumption tax won't work.
Consumption tax does work.
It works great for Florida and Tennessee and Texas and a bunch of other states.
While I'm thinking about it, you mentioned Tennessee. We discovered the other day, we've been mentioning Tennessee as one of the states that has no income tax. They actually do. It just doesn't apply to wages. It's just it's a very limited in scope. It applies to some dividends and
interest
and
dividends,
stuff like that,
but not wages. And that's a big difference.
So for most people, Tennessee has no income tax.
Right.
But that's the way it works. So we want to correct the record on that one.
So how can somebody who lives in one of these no income tax states say, well, consumption tax won't work? It's working for them.
It works really well in Florida. It works really well in Texas, two of the biggest economies in the country. In fact, probably two of the biggest economies in the world if you consider everything.
Florida is the 17th largest economy in the world. We've got a better economy than many countries.
All right, let me throw this in real quick before we get going off. We were talking about POPVOX last week. You can go on there and look up, the level of support for any piece of legislation in Congress. And we looked up H.R. 25, the House version of the fair tax. 97% of the people who have commented about it on POPVOX support the fair tax. 3% oppose. Congress critters, take note.
Yes, this should tell you something, all right? It's there. And POPVOX was created so that our Congress critters can take a quick look at it, so that their staffers can take any bill that's pending in Congress right now is on POPVOX, any bill. And so their staff can go in, all right, the congressman wants to know, I need to know about this bill, and let me know what's going on. Let me know what's going on nationwide, in my district, in my state, and so forth, because POPVOX breaks it down for them. So, 97% nationwide.
All right, we need to get digging on today's topic of Fair Tax Power Radio. This is something that you dig up from Politico. This was published.
Randy sent us this.
Yeah, Randy sent us this. Yep. He sent us Randy Fisher. We're talking about. This was published on the 9th of November, a couple of weeks ago. Called Morning Tax, and they call it Pedal to the Metal on Debt Collection. Now, this is something that we have talked about on Fair Tax Power Radio a lot, because one of the huge problems with the income tax system is the rampant evasion that comes with it.
Yeah.
And so the IRS is now trying to collect a lot of money that it is owed that is not being collected, and that figure is in the billions with a B. Billions of dollars are actually owed under the income tax code that the IRS doesn't get their hands on because they got people stashing it offshore. They got people underreporting their income. They've got people over-reporting the credits and deductions that they are entitled to. It is just a horrible mess of a system.
Yeah.
And so the IRS has decided, rather than getting rid of the system and replacing it with something that actually works, they're going to say they're going to put the pedal to the metal and let it roar. So the White Knight used to say that on the CB. Remember that? I am definitely dating myself on that one.
Radio guy.
Oh, yes. I played that record a lot. So.
Evasion is so bad, think of it this way. 1 in 5 people is not paying the fair tax. In this country, 1 in 5 people, and the other 4 out of 5, we're making up for it. And so what the IRS's solution to this is the IRS is revving up its private debt collection program, assigning collection companies thousands of more accounts. Oh, they've got outside companies that are going to try to retrieve these owed taxes. Our Aaron Lorenzo got an exclusive look at some of the numbers showing that each of the 4 companies involved in the program are on pace to be assigned about 40,000 cases per month. 40,000 cases.
Let that number sink in. 40,000. These are delinquent collections.
Yes. And these, as it explains later, these are people who know they owe. They've filed, and they know they owe, but they can't afford to pay. All right? What about all the people that don't even bother to file? Well, doesn't really address that, does it?
Oh, going to be close to 2 million accounts are going to get turned over by the IRS to these private collection agencies.
Yep, a total of 1.9 million accounts will get turned over, and they're talking about the program is notched up. They made a profit. They made a profit in 2018 of $22 million. So, you know, forget about when you debit what they have to pay the commissions to these companies because they can't work for free, okay? The IRS managed to collect about $22 million. Now, in 2017 and 2016, when they did this, they actually lost money.
Yeah, startup costs and some stuff like that involved. But it's interesting that in this article, and let's give credit to the author real quick. Toby Eckert wrote this for Politico. He was noting that the advocates of this collection program include Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Chuck Schumer. Now, those are 2 Chucks who rarely agree on anything.
Yeah.
But if both of those are on board with trying to get this debt collection going, they both realize that the current income tax system is leaving a lot of money on the table. And I wish we could convince at least one, if not both of them, that the best idea is to get rid of the system that's not working and replace it with one that does.
By the way, Bob.
Yes.
Grassley and Schumer, whose states are home to 3 of the 4 collection agencies.
Oh, that explains it, doesn't it? That's
just a coincidence. You know, I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
That's Iowa and New York. Mercy.
Oh, boy. So the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah. So that's bringing home the bacon for your district. Of course, for senators, their district is the whole state. But
the program targets tax underpayments, which are taxes owed by those who have filed returns and agree that they owe, but haven't paid off their balances in full. Well, what about the total evaders? Again, what about the people who don't even file a tax return? This program does nothing about that because how do you find them? If you've got people that aren't, filing a return, how is the IRS going to find them? Well, they have to do like a widespread search and destroy, which means they're going to bother a lot of legal taxpayers who are paying their income taxes.
Yeah, that's one of the points that Steve Hayes makes on this thing. If you're going to ramp up your enforcement collection efforts, you're going to step on a lot of innocent toes in the process. I mean, if they knew who the criminals were, they'd go after them.
Yeah, but how do you find out people who aren't filing a tax return at all? You can't find them. So the last part of this, Bob, I love this. Okay, the collection rate in 2018 was about 1.7%.
Wow,
1.7%. That's up from 0.7%. Woohoo! Boy, they've increased their collection rate from 0.7% up to 1.7%.
Party time!
It's just amazing. I mean, it's such a failure. This income tax is a failure on so many levels, and that just demonstrates what a failure it is, even trying to collect it. And these are from people who admit that they owe it, you know?
Yeah.
So they're being honest. Yeah, I owe it, but I just don't have the money.
That's the catch me if you can crowd.
Oh boy. So, it's unbelievable. It's amazing.
Oh, so if there are still people out there, I never understand this, but there are still people out there who think the income tax is the only way to fund the government. It is the only way that anybody who's working today knows. I mean, the income tax was originated in 1913.
Yeah.
It's now 2018, so it's 105 years ago. So I don't think there's anybody working today who knows what it's like not to have your wages docked with withholding, and of course that started in the 40s. But the income tax is the only system anybody's ever known, and the lobbyists and the Congress critters are trying to perpetrate the myth that it's the only system that can be. But until these guys out in Houston that we talked about last week decided, well, let's build us a better idea from scratch, build us a better system from scratch, and what they come up with is a national retail consumption tax that reduces the corporate income tax to zero, gets rid of the individual income tax to zero, and instead the tax is collected by retail consumers when they buy stuff. Oh, but wait a minute. That means corporations will no longer be paying their fair share. Oh, horrors that going to be.
Oh, yeah, that's another problem.
But listen,
companies
folks,
don't pay taxes.
Let me say that again. Corporations do not pay taxes. Now, they may write a check to Uncle Sam. No doubt about that. But it's just like writing a check to a vendor or a supplier.
Sure.
It is a cost of doing business. The cost is rolled into the price of the products and services that the businesses generate. The retail consumer pays it anyway.
Yeah, that's us.
Or in the case of corporate public companies, your shareholders are going to pay that tax in the form of lower dividends. Your employees are going to pay that tax in the form of lower benefit packages. But individuals will pay those corporate taxes, every last one of them. And the corporate compliance costs, we've talked about that. The money you have to pay your tax attorney, the money you have to pay your accountant, the hours upon hours, the man hours that are worth money that you have to spend keeping records and filling out the forms and all that stuff. Everything you've got to do over and above the actual tax liability to keep your tail end out of jail ends up getting rolled into the price of the products and services that the companies provide, and the retail consumers pay it. So don't fall for that idea that the fair tax is going to let corporations off scot-free. It will free them from a lot of hassle they're doing now. But again, the corporations do not pay taxes any more, than the corporations, end up paying for the plywood that goes into a shed.
Sure.
The retail consumer pays for all of the materials, all of the labor, all of the costs of doing business, the transportation. They pay for part of everybody's company's phone bill, Every cost of doing business is rolled into the price of the things we buy. So get rid of all that income tax and just let the retail consumer pay it like he's doing already.
Corporations are people. Corporations are made of people, whether they're the managers, the employees, or the customers. They're made of people. So people always end up paying the corporate taxes. Always. There's no exception. Okay. So, anyways, that's something to get across, because there are some people.
We will no longer need this collection program if we do it with the fair tax, because again, the fair tax is collected by retailers and will be remitted to the states.
Yeah, what's the evasion like for a retail sales tax?
The state sales tax, I imagine, is probably 0 something percent.
Yeah.
Is evaded because, of course, you realize that a lot of most of your retail sales are handled by 400 or 500 big box stores.
Yeah.
500 places account for 90% plus of all the retail sales in America. So if you change your enforcement point from millions upon millions of taxpayers to a couple thousand retailers.
And it's done by, well, actually, I think there's over 1 million retailers, but still, it's done by the states. So you have 50 collection agencies. 45 of the states already have a sales tax. They know how to collect the sales tax, and they know how to look for fraud. Okay, so you don't want to mess around. When we get a sales tax and you're playing fast and loose by not sending in all of your sales tax that you're collecting, you're you're fighting with fire and you're going to get burned.
That's easy to catch.
Yeah, it is. Very
your birds,
easy.
you know how much your sales are, and you know how much your tax rate is, so you know what percentage of your sales you should be remitting. And if your numbers don't add up, they get you.
And only very tiny companies will be tempted to do that. The big box stores are not going to do that. The Walmarts and the Sears and the Targets and so forth, they're not going to mess around. They collect the sales tax. It's done automatically at the cash register by the computers, and they send it in. Boom. It's automatic. They don't mess around with that.
Even if some of the small fry don't do that, the percent, you're not going to get anywhere near billions and billions of dollars that are owed and not collected. This is going to be a much more efficient system, a much more foolproof system, a much less error-prone system. I mean, how many of that billions of dollars are actually honest mistakes?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's really been any study to that, but
doing a sales tax is very simple. My wife and I used to have a truck leasing company, and we had to pay a Florida sales tax on our lease fees. So it was very simple. You add up what the lease fees, you multiply it by this one. The bank actually gave us an account just for the sales tax. We did a deposit into there. You're done. It took 15 minutes every month. And we didn't dare mess around with it because it was very easy to audit. And you don't want to mess around with it.
Yep. So, and you don't have to file a bunch of paperwork. You don't have to file a bunch of schedules. And I will hopefully that we can get the president on board here because with the new Congress coming in, they are going to want to get into his tax returns. And some of the congressional committees do have the statutory authority to see anybody's tax return that they want. You know, as soon as that one gets looked at, it's going to get leaked. So we can tell the president, hey, look, if you will support the fair tax, there will not be any tax return of yours for your political opponents to make hay on.
Yeah, and the people who would like to weaponize the income tax, they're not going to like it, but too bad.
Nope, too bad. I'll tell you what.
I ran across, now we're going to shift gears here a little bit.
Yeah,
I was trying to
18 gears in your truck here, we can do that.
I was trying to clean up my email inbox. Oh my God, it's out of control. But I was
don't delete 33,000 emails.
I don't have quite that many. But anyways, I was looking at my flagged emails, important stuff that I want to save, and I ran across this from April 17th of 2012, and it's from Bob Paxton, of all people. He said, here are some scripts for the kind of ads I'm thinking about. Being a radio guy, a longtime radio guy, Bob was thinking about, hey, we should do some radio ads for the fair tax. And so I'm not even going to attempt these because he's a lot better at reading these things. Do you remember these from?
I do. Now that I look at the scripts, I do remember writing these things a long time ago. But,
I think it'd be worthwhile to go over a few of them in the few minutes we have left.
You want me to get up my radio voice here?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Mr. Radio Guy.
All right. Ready? Ever heard of a tax that pays itself? The fair tax does. The fair tax contains a monthly prebate, which is money the government gives you to pay the tax on your spending up to the poverty level for your household size. Learn more at Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And I will change that now to say AFFT, fairtax.org, the national group. It's listed under there. See how replacing the current tax code with the fair tax will make your life a lot easier, create jobs, and build a better America.
Doesn't that sound great? And doesn't it sound good when he does it?
That is a parody, folks, of the way some of their radio people do. But the idea is a good one. Really, have you ever heard of a tax that pays itself? And it does. The tax you pay on your spending up to the poverty level is paid for you. You will get a rebate check. We call it a prebate because it's a rebate ahead of time. Usually to get a rebate, you spend the money and then you get reimbursed. On the prebate, they give you the money first and then you can spend it. But that's how that works. And that's what keeps the fair tax fair. That's what keeps the fair tax from just decimating those on the lower end of the social.
That's right. Yeah, for those people that say, oh, it's a consumption tax that hurts the poor, do your homework. Learn about it because the fair tax does not hurt the poor. The fair tax is the best thing that will ever happen for the working poor. No question about it. And also, we did here in Florida, we did some radio ads, last year or the year before, something like that. Yeah. And Bob recorded some, I recorded some. We had another friend of ours, Chip Morris, record some. Chip is an experienced radio guy. Bob is an experienced radio guy. I'm a former high school science teacher. Okay.
That means we got ours in one take each, and it took. I won't go there.
I did 6 or 7 of them, and I did get one.
I think we did 5 each.
Yeah, 5 each? Okay. One of them I got in one take. The others, there's no exaggeration. I had to do 6 or 8 times to get it right because I'm just not as good at reading this stuff. So, Bob, do another one.
All right.
Radio guy.
Are you tired of a tax system riddled with loopholes and special tax breaks that allow people to escape paying their fair share? If so, you'll love the FAIRtax. It's the one tax reform proposal that truly is fair to everyone across the board. No one pays any tax on the basic necessities of life. Beyond that, the more you spend, the higher your effective tax rate. No exemptions, no exceptions. Learn more at, I'm going to change this now to FAIRtax.org, www.fairtax.org. And so that's it.
So, yeah, there are a lot of legal loopholes in the current income tax. Legal loopholes that some people can take advantage of.
I'm shocked. How would that get into the tax code?
Oh, my gosh. Well, it probably has something to do with Congress critters and lobbyists and campaign cash, and, that kind of relationship there. Mr. Congressman or Mrs. Congresswoman, if you sponsor this proposal here to change the tax code, you'll find a nice contribution to your campaign fund.
Okay. Can I do one more?
Yeah, please.
Would you like to bring home the full gross amount of your paycheck every week or receive your pension or IRA distribution in full with no federal tax withholding? You can with the FAIRtax. The FAIRtax replaces the income tax and all the federal withholding that supports it. It also gets rid of the FICA and Medicare payroll taxes, so you get to keep everything you earn. Learn more at FAIRtax.org.
Yeah. Just think.
One take.
Yeah. Rub it in. That's why he's reading these, not me. But just think of what your paycheck, or if you're retired like Bob and I, your retirement distribution would look like with no federal withholding. None. Just think about that. You're going to get the full gross amount of your paycheck. What will that do for your family? That would be great for your family.
What does that do for people that are making minimum wage or just above it? They need every dime they can get their hands on, and abolishing those payroll taxes for FICA and Medicare. They are the most regressive taxes on the book. They hit the poor harder than anything that would hit the Donald Trump crowd. Yep. And the FAIRtax gets rid of those horribly regressive taxes. You could not be do any better if you're on the lower end of the scale than you can with a FAIRtax.
Yep. And the people who are making a lot of money and spending a lot of money, their effective tax rate is much, much higher.
No loopholes, no exemptions, no exceptions. You buy something, you pay the tax, period.
Yep. So it's really simple. Okay, one more, Bob.
One more? Okay. Have you ever wished there was a way to abolish the IRS and free yourself from ever having to fill out another income tax return? There is. It's the FAIRtax. The FAIRtax taxes spending, not income. No tax returns required. You can find out more at FAIRtax.org or attend a presentation like we used to give. Yeah. Learn the facts. See how replacing the current tax code with the FAIRtax turns April 15th into just another lovely spring day.
Yeah, so for individuals, no tax returns at all. Because for individuals, you pay the tax when you go to the store and you buy something. It's automatically included in the price of the object, okay? And so you buy a coffee maker for $100, it says coffee maker, $77, FAIRtax, $23, okay? It's done automatically. So for individuals, there's no tax returns. For companies, there's a little bit, but it's reduced by like 80 or 90%, their paperwork.
That's only companies dealing in retail sales. If you're a wholesaler, if you're supplying another business with something, there is no FAIRtax at the wholesale level, like there is with that European VAT tax that keeps getting added and added. The FAIRtax is a retail consumption tax. It's assessed at the cash register when a retail customer buys something. New goods and services. Now, if you're buying something used car, something like that, no FAIRtax.
Another benefit to the working poor, they don't have to buy a new car. They can buy a used car and legally avoid the FAIRtax because there's no FAIRtax on used stuff.
All right, one more.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like it's none of the government's business to know how much money you make and how you make it? With the fair tax, it's not. The fair tax is a simple retail sales tax that's paid anonymously at the cash register. The government will no longer have any need to know the intimate details of your personal finances. Learn more at www.fairtax.org.
Yeah.
My screen just went dark. My screensaver just caught up.
Just think about that. The fair tax is used like a weapon against individuals, all right? If somebody, I don't know, anybody says, oh, we need to check into this guy's tax returns, okay? And I've seen it happen. The IRS you weaponize the tax code and start doing audits and so forth just to harass you. I've seen this happen, not to me personally, fortunately. So why? Why? The tax code is supposed to be there to collect money for the government. Why do you have to divulge all this personal information that you probably wouldn't even share with your own children, but you have to give the government? And then they can turn around and use it, in some kind of an investigation if they don't like something you're doing.
Yes, Thomas Jefferson would not like that.
No, he certainly wouldn't, and he told us that.
We'll have to ask him about that.
That's right.
All right, well, I see your little timer's down to just about zero, so we're going to have to wrap up this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. That was fun.
That was good.
All right, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Bolero.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Oh, these income tax forms are way too complicated. There's got to be a better way. Who are you?
We're the FAIRtax Guys.
We've got a big solution for you.
What's that?
It's the fair tax. Completely eliminates the federal income tax system as we know it. No more withholding, no more payroll taxes, no more tax returns ever, no more IRS. All gone. And I guarantee you, once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
Yeah.